Hello, Team Vida.
Hey,
How are
what's
you
going
doing?
on?
We are going to get right into it today. We do have a guest that I'm sure that you will connect with and enjoy. Let me see. High Top from Florida, Elton Harvey from Colorado, Felix Tames from Texas, Reynaldo Pavon in New York, Jeffrey Davis, Jeremy Torres in Colorado. Let me try and say this. I think it's Cayuga County Jail in Auburn, New York.
Okay.
That's a new place that we're hearing from. Ronald Stream Jr. and all the Seggers over there in Greencastle, Indiana.
Okay.
And then Farron Starr from Longview and Rodrigo from California. What you got, hon?
Well, I got some new map pins this week, and I want to show, I've been trying to show the close-ups of the state so everybody can see whether or not their pin is there. So there is kind of the central United States, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, Colorado, Wyoming. You can see yourself. And in honor of our guest tonight, I'm showing the Deep South. There's Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, Arkansas, some of South and North Carolina, and parts of Florida. So make sure and check if your pin is there. Here's our new pins this week. Jonesboro, Arkansas, Donaldsonville, Georgia, Georgetown, Delaware, Mount Sterling, Illinois, and Olmito, Texas, which is down in El Valle.
It's weird that we're still getting some new Texas pins.
Right.
I know,
but
it's
people
crazy.
are still, they're still rolling out tablets. And so all over the place, all over the nation, we didn't know. And then they just got the tablets and we hear from them.
Right.
I'm going to read a portion of a letter, if that's okay. Okay, this is from California, Real Vida Familia. First and foremost, allow me to extend my utmost love, respect, and gratitude in abundance to you, Mama E, Brother Jeremy, Chris, and the entire Real Vida family. For all that you do for the incarcerated like myself and beyond. You are truly a blessing to those in which their lives are in turmoil and shambles and enduring trials and tribulation as I currently am. Now, with the formalities aside, no further delay, allow me to commence onward. Now, before I introduce myself and the purpose of me writing the letter, I first would like to say to Mama Eve, thank you for coming into my life through your podcast. Your words and love and testimony are truly a blessing. Beautiful on the inside as well as the outside, never changing who you are. Brother Jeremy, the same goes for you. I have nothing but respect for you in the highest regard. I admire the look in your eyes every time you look at Mama Eve.
Hey.
Not just sometimes, but every time.
Oh.
It's a look of passion and true love. That's something you never see where I'm from. It's guys like you that give guys like me a good look that there are still good men out there somewhere. So I commend you, brother. And I wasn't going to read that. And then I just read this at the last minute. Because a lot of people do say that, that, and it's a good thing, right? We're not supposed to run out of love. And I remember like when I don't know how long we've been married, maybe 4 or 5 years. And we had opened our church and this couple came and he would get annoyed, right? That my husband would treat me like we were on our honeymoon still. And that he would look at me that way. And he's like, oh, you got over it. When you've been married 10 years, you'll get over it. And we've been married how many? 27? 27 years. And he hadn't got over it.
Hey.
Amen. So
Praise God.
that's a good thing. And you guys, in your marriages, you don't have to get over it. You can remain in love the way we should remain in love with the Lord.
Come on.
Right? If we keep our relationship with him, keep that upkeep, then you're still as passionate about God. And that's the thing, because there are many, many people that are no longer passionate about the relationship with God and what he's doing and no longer really in communication with him, although they're a Christian and they're married to him, right?
Right.
And so anyway, I thought, well, I'll go ahead and read that. And because it is so relevant to our relationships and to our relationship with God.
Amen.
So anyway, I won't read all of it, but it says, I just recently got a tablet. I discovered Real Vida literally like 4 days ago on account. And let me tell you, since I discovered you guys, I haven't used my tablet for anything else, not even stuff I paid for.
Oh my goodness.
Come on.
From 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., I binge watch all the episodes that I can.
Wow. Thank you,
The
Jesus.
first one I noticed was the Father's Day shout out one with the name Real Vida, which is what caught my eye. After I watched that one, which I thought was amazing, the next one to catch my eye was El Pachuco. And from there, I was hooked. I related to his story so much it scared me. The music videos are amazing. Today I woke up and replayed Lift Up His Name for 3.5 hours straight.
Wow.
By the way, I sent that line to Kingdom Music today and said, hey, he replayed Lift Up His Name for 3.5 hours straight.
That's awesome.
I've been showing everyone in my unit your podcast since I found it. I've lost my way from the Lord for a long time now, and y'all have brought light to the end of my tunnel. I've just been so caught up in the world of guns, drugs, and gangs. Same as Dino. I'm a Northern Hispanic. I wish I could come on an episode one day to tell my story because God knows I sure have one to tell. Wow. And that too, that what he said of you've brought light to the end of my tunnel. I've been away from God for a long time, and it's like a little glimpse of it. If you've had a very, very, very good friend at any time or a cousin or something that you were really close to or, and you've been away a long time and kind of you lost track what they were doing and what you were doing. And then you get back together again and you're like, all these memories and the warmth comes back of like, why did I ever leave? Right. Or how we not kept in touch, man. You'll say to your brother, your cousin, whoever you're like, man, we need to keep in touch from now on. Right.
Right.
And it brings all that back. And that is how it is with the Lord. So it wasn't like he wasn't there all along. You were just so far away. And even though you couldn't see him, he was always there, And so anyway, he tells a little bit of his life, and I think I'm going to read a little more of it. I just came up on life, tried to commit suicide from heroin. When that didn't work, I tried fentanyl, although I feel like I overdosed multiple times for some reason. I always woke up. I've ejected out the front windshield while the car flipped into the opposite side of the freeway because my driver was drunk. I've been shot and stabbed and confined to a wheelchair for 2 years until I learned to walk again. I've been shot by a rival gang. For some reason, God hasn't called me home yet. I wish I knew his purpose for me on earth. I've had a childhood I wouldn't wish on anyone. And so, he tells a little more about that, but isn't it amazing how when God has purpose for your life, you're still here and you're definitely here for a purpose. Anyway, he signs it bulletproof love and Teflon respect, always and forever, your brother in Christ.
Wow.
Such a great letter and testimony. And we are praying for you and everyone else. I got a stack of letters today, over 100 letters today.
There it is. I put it up on the screen for him.
And anyway, we're glad to hear from you. And we are always praying for you, whether we get to read your letter or shout you out or not. You're just as much on our heart and in our lives. And number one, in the heart of God, in his hands. And you get to call out to him.
Amen.
A couple more announcements and then we'll break and come back with our guest. I do have people like the sports updates. So since I'm a Cowboys fan and I'm equal opportunity, I've got another Cowboys hate meme that I put up because it's pretty bad. The question at the top is, have you won a home game in 2024? Yes, it's November. Every team in the NFL, MLB, NHL, and NBA is on it, except for the Dallas Cowboys are the only team in 4 major sports all over the United States. Boy, that hurts.
I can't believe you're doing that with your own team. Oh, you're going to talk about Tyson.
And so, I think we have to talk about Tyson and Jake Paul. Here's at the weigh-in. Tyson slapped Jake Paul because Jake Paul stepped on his toe. I don't know if it was staged or scripted or not, but I would not want to be slapped by even a 58-year-old Mike Tyson. No. That dude is ripped. And here's some footage of the fight or a still shot from the fight. It was mostly a lot of this. Tyson is 58, man. He's 31 years older. It wasn't even a fair fight. He shouldn't have gone
back in that ring.
I'm impressed that he made it 8 rounds.
For sure.
And so here's what Tyson posted. He had 8 blood transfusions in June. He nearly died.
Wow, I didn't know
and
that.
To think that he fought, in November of the same year that happened is pretty amazing. And so he was just excited. He made it 8 rounds and he made $20 million. So here's our art show for this week. We've got some art that Mama Eve gave me and we like putting it up
cloth,
so you can
so
see
we can
it.
Wouldn't stay up on the wall, but it's amazing.
Really amazing. It's pretty large too. Here's some kind of a Hog Mob Vida Nation combination art. And there is a winged lion. And there is a kind of a copy of the Lo Mijo.
Another Lo Mijo.
Yeah, which is really good also. All right, and coming soon, Denver, Colorado, March 29th, Mile High City. We'll see you there. All right.
Let me talk about my little mijo for a minute.
Talk. Okay. I'll go back to it.
Because somebody sent me another one, which I had put up on the wall a couple of podcasts back, and the guy was a little angel. I think he had wings or something, and he said because it was the redeemed little mijo,
all right,
or something. But the thing is with little mijo, he looks the same, right?
Yeah,
he looks the same on the outside. The real change is on the inside.
Yeah,
and you don't always see it on the outside.
Yeah.
You know,
I love it.
I love that. I do love that we get to come as we are. And the scripture says that God doesn't look at the outside, he looks at the heart.
Right. Come on.
Thank you, Jesus, right? Because there's a whole lot of people I'm not all tatted, I'm not a little mijo, but I'm a little mija. Hey. And you know, I've told you at the beginning of this that, you know, my very Indian face, and probably the older I get, like, you know, my lips, they're turned down more, right? And so then people think you're upset or you're mad, or, you know, they don't know how to read you. And so that's why I relate to that, right? To the outside, like, because it don't reflect apparently what's going on inside and all that love I have, right?
Yes.
So, I love Lil Mijo.
Well, and you talking about Lil Mijo and saying what you said is a perfect segue to the scripture I wanted to read. It's Romans 12:2. It says, "Don't be conformed to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect." And it's an inside change, transformation, not an outside appearance. And with that, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back with our guest.
If I told you that everything ain't always good and at times I ain't got it, would you lift me up in prayer or laugh at me and gossip? I'm just being honest, you ain't the only one with problems. Every day ain't shrimp and steak, at times we had to share McDonald's. And when you the man, doing everything you can, at times you tell your children no and they don't really understand. I've been through all of this before, to some it ain't relatable. First let me say I'm grateful, God is faithful, but I'm human though. Don't wanna let my wifey down, so feelings I internalize. Hop inside my car and drive, don't wanna let her see me cry. I know she got my back, and though I'm strong at times it's heavy though. You told me cast my burdens, God I'm hurting, so I'll let you know.
I'm getting lost in the thoughts in my head, and I'm wondering when is it over. I'll be honest, feeling like life's weighing me down, and I'm feeling the weight on my shoulders. I'm trying not to lose myself. Can I be honest? I could really use your help. Can I be honest?
Mentally it's one thing, spiritually it's different though. God said he will be with me, and I just need to trust him more. I wrote this song so you would know you are not in this alone, and everything in life's a test. Put this so that you would grow. I know how those thoughts can be, telling you to live it up. You'll never be enough for God, and you just need to give it up. I sat there in that seat at church, saying I'm gonna take my life. God, I need to hear from you, or I'm gonna follow through tonight. But do you know he values you? Gave the strength, the power, you would probably be devoured if that coward Satan got to you. But God is sovereign, Abba, he's your father, man, I promise you. If you can just be honest, he'll show up and take those problems too.
I'm getting lost in the thoughts in my head, and I'm wondering when is it over. I'll be honest, feeling like life's weighing me down, and I'm feeling the weight on my shoulders. I'm trying not to lose myself. Can I be honest? I could really use your help. Can I be honest?
Hey guys, we're back. We're excited to have with us today in studio from the great state of Alabama. I'm putting up a picture of the Roll Tide right there to honor and respect our guest. His name is Mark Calvert. He's a pastor. He works in the prisons there. He may have spent some time in the prison not working there in the past. I'm sure we'll get into that. And so we're excited to have you. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
You probably want to shout out some of your people, no?
Yeah, so Stone County Regional Correctional Facility in Wiggins, Mississippi.
Yeah.
What's
Hello,
up, guys?
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yes. And man, big shout out to our alcohol and drug program that's now been certified through the state as a Christ-centered program. And
Wow.
got Brent Tatum, Charles Manning, Denver Higgy, Eric Melvin, Forrest Shoemate, John Smith, Kevin Delaney, and Seth Coker. Man, they're just killing it right now in that class.
That is awesome.
That's so awesome, man. That's so awesome. Texas is starting to get some, more and more programs. Thank you, God. We need them badly.
Yes.
So
yeah, I mean, so you're a pastor of Turning Points Church and you run a men's discipleship residential program. However, you didn't start out life doing that. Just let's go all the way back.
So we'll go back first.
Let's go all the way back. Tell us about life growing up.
Yeah, so typically when you see somebody that does stuff like we do, there's usually a reason for it, right?
Right.
Yeah, we don't we don't wake up and walk into that deep water for just to take the temperature of it.
Sure.
Right? Yeah, usually it's certainly a purpose. So, yeah, man, I grew up with a single mom raising me. My parents got divorced when I was 7, and I've talked about this in previously, but I think that when we look at our life, we're so impressionable, we're so easily influenced, and when I was a kid, I grew up in the Reagan administration, and the Just Say No campaign, the DARE program was a big deal. And I remember being, influenced by that when I was like in 6th grade. And man, I remember thinking drugs were bad. And but then late night TV, ironically enough, a documentary during MTV. I remember when TV started coming on after midnight, it was a big deal.
Yeah.
And up late at night, I was swayed due to this documentary about marijuana. I felt like I would try it the next time I had the opportunity.
And that's something.
So crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
I
powerful.
I got to interject this here because I'm just so astounded about how many guests we've had that have been so severely affected by the direction of life, by a movie, by a rap song, or, like this, a documentary.
So powerful.
Man.
Wow.
So tell on.
Yeah. So I just made a decision to try it.
Wow.
Marijuana that was. And we talk about, that being a gateway. And I think that the Just Say No campaign in the Reagan administration did a really good job. And they classed marijuana as a class 1 narcotic, right? They lumped that in. And back, for me, when I grew up, when you thought drugs, you thought crack, cocaine, marijuana. And then, when you try marijuana for the first time, you're like, okay, well, this is what drugs are like. That wasn't that bad. So let's try some more.
Yeah.
And then that same year, at age 16, I think was the first time I smoked marijuana. And that same year, tried cocaine, tried mushrooms, tried pills, tried alcohol. Like it just, boom, that door bopped open that first year.
The door cracked open and you just busted it open all the way.
Oh, yeah, kicked it in.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, like a search
Wow.
warrant. Yeah.
So how did that affect your life when you went that direction?
I think most things, it was gradual.
Right.
You know what I mean? And bondage is subtle.
Yeah.
And so I think that I was one of these guys. I grew up and it followed me all the way up into my 30s, like really pride, ego, arrogance. But if you dig back down to the core of it, like okay, well, where's that coming from? And it was basically insecurities.
Right.
I did not have my dad wasn't present growing up. I mean, he was there, weekends, sometimes summer, but it was a relationship that I either had to chase or relent to not having. And I wanted to do things to impress men in my life and the guys. And, always kind of gravitated to an older crowd, always trying to do things to impress them. And at the foundation of pride is, I believe to be in most cases, insecurity,
Absolutely.
And trying to validate yourself in some way.
100%.
Yeah. And so, due to that and caring a great deal for all the wrong reasons about what people thought of me, it was a weekend thing. It was parties. It was this. And, I started going to jail when I was 18. And now I caught a really heavy case, getting just involved with the wrong guys when they went to a house to take some things from it. I happened to be there, and it was just it wasn't a good thing at all. And so I went to jail and then got put on probation. My mom kind of forked out a lot of money for a paid attorney, went in all her savings, and I skirted out of that at 18. And one of the best things that ever happened to me as far as that goes, because but it put me on probation.
Right.
And then, just staying in and around those same guys, got on that hamster wheel, and then just continued to go in and out of jail, throughout most of my life. And drugs were always involved.
Right.
But the addiction wasn't out of control. It didn't get out of control until later in my 30s.
Wow.
So let's take you back for a second, too. We usually like to ask, in your home growing up, did you go to church? Did you know anything about God? What did you think about God?
I remember the only memory that I have of church when my mom and dad was married. Now, they divorced when I was 7. So we're talking about like 6. And I can remember vaguely going like maybe once or twice. I mean, God was not. Now, my mom is a wonderful, wonderful woman. I think her worst habit's decaffeinated coffee. God love her. I mean, she sacrificed her entire life to raise me and my brother. And, we were her life, but working all the time. And,
Sure.
God wasn't, it wasn't like what it should be. And it wasn't a relationship. There was no fellowship. There was no church, and not at all.
Wasn't a priority, and it wasn't a guide as far as your actions.
No, it never factored into anything.
Wow.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Mm.
So here you're a young guy. You've gotten on the hamster wheel. I thought that's a pretty good way to put that. So where does it begin to go from there?
So, just getting in and out of trouble with the marijuana, then on probation, then you got into a season where the spice was legal, right? Being sold out of
Right.
gas stations. And then
Yeah.
people
Right.
that were on probation tended to lean on that
Sure.
to skirt their obligations. And then it became illegal, and they pulled it. And then that created a crime wave. And then,
Right.
so that's kind of where it started spiraling out of control. And then, I fell in love with somebody that was using methamphetamines. And then, I can remember just it being on the weekends, and then Monday, and then Tuesday, and then Wednesday, and then,
Slowly took over.
yeah. Successful in the world's eyes in that season, like, doing finance and insurance, doing F&I at car dealerships, was a general manager, new car manager, making a lot of money, wearing nice clothes, but
And you feel
enslaving.
kind of bulletproof because,
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if anybody understands the car business, but like if you pass the drug test, you did not qualify for employment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our assistant pastor's been a car
Yeah.
salesman for many years.
so,
And he did not qualify.
Yeah, he did not.
But okay, so you were locked up, or no, you weren't locked up at 18. You got out of it. So
I was locked up. I did a little over a year. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Fighting that. And then had some other stuff in some other counties. And I mean, it would always, like, when I would go to jail, it just seemed like I could never get in and out of there without it hitting 6 months. I mean, it was just
Okay.
like, I don't know what that thing, that
Mandatory
180
minimum.
days was.
Yeah.
But that
Okay.
180 would just followed me around.
okay,
no
so
matter
there
what.
were multiple times.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah, absolutely.
okay.
Yeah,
And then-
like throughout my entire
All
life.
right.
Yeah.
So I thought, how did you escape it all this time
Yeah,
from 18 to 30 or whatever?
No.
At what age then do you actually go to prison?
Yeah, in my 30s. Yeah.
Okay.
So in early 30s, and then after that went that one time, it just continued to go. And then where I kind of hit bottom was I had came home from prison and kind of came home to learning some things that I wasn't really ready and prepared to learn. Wasn't able to handle that well. Kind of chaos and a domestic situation ensued, and that year, the year this happened, you have to understand that I had been to prison 4 times that year in technicals.
Yeah.
So in the state of Alabama, where I did most of my problems, or I had most of my problems, it was, when you were on parole, and you violated that parole, technically, not reporting, failing a drug test, not reporting an address change, which all three I had done,
Right.
they would dunk you. And so they would send you back to prison for, 30, 45 days, whatever
Sure.
they deemed. And
Yeah.
so I had been to prison 4 times that year in technicals. And had ran from the police 3 times that week leading up to this bottom. And man, I stuff popped off with at her house, and I was running. They saw me, lit me up. I took off, cut through a trailer park. There was a little girl's bike leaned up on the front porch, and I snatched it, and it was a little pink and purple bike. And,
Wow.
And in an attempt to get away from them, and I was just pedaling, and I jerked the handlebars off of it. It snapped, and I slid into a bush. It was actually in a church parking lot. And, I make the joke all the time. There's a lot of people who's heard this, but I say, if you want to get away from the police, the trick's not to run, it's to hide, right? That's how you do it. That's the cheat code right there. Don't run, hide. And I remember when I slid into that bush, I call it a briar patch in my testimony. I think, it's probably like an azalea, but it had just a lot of briars in it. I was cut up.
Oh.
But I remember when I slid in there, I remember thinking like, I'm in a pretty good little spot right here. And I pulled that bike up and was trying to just hide myself the best I could. They were going back and forth trying to look for me. And even the police was, several hundred feet away on the street. I was tucked up in this bush, but I had been up for some days. I'd been using tremendously leading up to this point, and my watch beeped, and I freaked out. Like I covered the watch. Because I just, they're in their patrol cars driving up and down, probably, the radio. I just, in my mind, I'm like, oh, they heard that.
Yeah.
And
it's a little watch beep, but it sounded like echo.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. And I just knew I was going back to prison for the rest of my life. And I covered my watch, not wanting the light to come on. And when I peeled my hand off of it to make sure the light was not on, I realized it was midnight. That's why it beeped. And it was my birthday. And I was 40. And I was just like, what am I doing, dude? Like, what in the world? I'm hiding and running from men. I'm wearing clothes that don't fit. I got a backpack with nothing in it. I'm not coming from anywhere good, and I got nowhere to go. I'm covered in cuts. I've lost so much weight, and I'm just like, I'm not doing this no more. Like it's midnight. It's a new day, and today is not going to be like yesterday. I'm done, man. And I just broke in that bush, and I did what any good convict would do, and I hid there till shift change. And I stayed in that bush till 6 a.m. When I knew they were changing shifts. I climbed up out of there, and at that time in my life, I was kind of determined to just get from one problem to another problem, because that was progress in my life at that point. As long as I was moving, and I went to a friend of mine's house that I'd been in prison with a long time, and that I knew would answer the door, and he did. And I just started calling everybody, and I finally got somebody to come pick me up. And when she came and was a girl, came and picked me up, and she was in a stolen truck. And
oh, wow.
Yeah. And so, she had borrowed the truck from somebody who had borrowed the truck. And then at the end of the line, there was somebody that wanted to get high that had trusted the wrong person to go get it with this truck. And so they were blowing her phone up and wanting the truck back, of course. And she was wigging out a little bit. And she just pulls off on a dirt road, man, and just kind of takes off through this field. And she's like, you can have this truck. I'm not, and gives me the keys.
Wow.
And I'm just like, all right, this is how I'm getting out of here. And in that truck, in that moment, on the wings of the angels that I did not believe in at the time, by the grace of the God that was with me, far from him while he was close to me.
Wow.
And I skirted in, ran out of gas, coasted into my mom's driveway in Mississippi, and was like, I'm home. And she hadn't seen me in a long time. And, it's funny because, we talk about it all the time, but the ones you love, the ones that quite potentially can love you to death, right? But but love you unconditionally. We stay so far away from them when we're in that mix, but then when we get jammed up and get behind those bricks, we're blowing them up. Won't call them for nothing when we have the opportunity to out there in the world.
Right.
But get thrown away.
They're the ones that's there.
And they're the ones that's there. Yeah. And so I hadn't talked to her in a long time, and not since the last time I was incarcerated. And thank God she wasn't a gun owner, because she probably would have shot me. I come in at like 2:00 in the morning, and she was. So that's kind of where my walk into a different life began. So yeah, I got to Mississippi. I wanted to change. I was done. I'd had enough, and so I just kind of committed myself to betterment. I made a deal with myself that if there was anything that I could do to be different or better, I would try my hardest to achieve it. And if I had to go sit somewhere for 3 hours to get one thing, I would do it. And so I started seeing a psychiatrist and a psychologist. I got on some meds for anger. I was very institutionalized. It was a crazy life when we come out of prison, because like you could go into a gas station and be buying a drink, and somebody could literally come in and rob somebody right beside you. Won't bother you, bump into you as they're leaving the gas station, and we're all up in some problems.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And so it's crazy because you get so desensitized to that as long as everybody stays in their lane. But if it's a direct conflict, you're flashing out. And so I started taking some stuff, I wanted to be different. And I was just kind of making a lot of effort to do that.
Was there any looking for God as the answer at this time?
No. My dad, so I say my stepdad, my mom had remarried. And when they moved to Mississippi, we all used to live in Alabama. And then I was just entangled in problems in prison. And they had left and went to Mississippi years and years back. And my dad got ordained as a deacon, felt a call to ministry, ended up going to seminary and to New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary.
Really something.
Began pastoring a church, working full-time at a credit union. And then by the time I made it back to Mississippi to be with them, he wasn't pastoring a church anymore, but he was a supply pastor. So he was for the Baptist Association. They would call him to fill in from time to time, and sometimes an interim, sometimes just a supply. And so, my mom was just glad I was home. But my stepdad, my dad, I call him my dad, he's my dad, but he had requirements of me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so he was always trying to get me to come to church. And, but man, dude, I did not believe in God at all. I felt like it was a really good story, but a story nonetheless, and for you to tell me what was going to happen to me after I die, and you've never died before, I just was like, yeah, no, you're running it on me, man. I'm done. You're like, And
before the podcast, you told us actually when you had been in prison before, you were pretty anti-God and anti-Christian.
Yes. So I did a lot of time in solitary, and every now and then, when I was on disciplinary, sometimes I would get a cellmate. And when you're on, like in Alabama, it's not a 23-1. It's you get 30s. So you only get 30 minutes out of your cell where I was. And so 30 minutes to take a shower, make phone calls, pass stuff around for the block, and do all that stuff. And it wasn't much time. And occasionally we'd have cellmates, depending upon. And that's a long time to be in a very small room with somebody. And if I found out that you were a believer, oh my goodness, like just out of pure sport to pacify my time, I would try to talk you out of it.
Yeah.
And looking back at that, like, man, I just think about what Paul must have thought,
Yeah.
Yeah. The least of them all, man.
So here you were, you'd been the anti-Christian, and your stepdad, your dad's coming at you, trying to get you to go to church. So how did you
come to God, right? Finally.
So my dad continues to invite me, and I continue to decline. And one day so my dad, when he went to seminary, so I'll put this story in context, he used to ride to seminary. He would carpool, right? Because we lived in Mississippi. He went to New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary. So he would carpool with this guy named Brian, and they got their degrees together. And they became really good friends. And Brian, while going to seminary, was telling my dad, hey, I feel led to start a ministry in my neighborhood as kind of a trailer park. And he said, I'm going to buy a building for $1. And my dad and a bunch of other guys that used to ride with him laughed him up. Man, you're saying you're not going to believe this one. And he did, dude. He bought this whole building for $1, got it set up in this trailer park, and started this ministry and started this little church. And they couldn't get a lot of parents out there, but they were getting a lot of the kids. And my dad comes to me one night. So him and Brian were really good friends. Brian had started this ministry, and this was like kind of in the Waveland, Mississippi area down on the coast. And so my dad comes up and he says, hey, listen, it's Friday night. And he said, we're going to do, they're having a steak night tonight, a steak dinner night with a guest speaker. And they're trying to get the dads out, and meet the dads. And I really want you to come. And I was like, no, man, you can bring me a steak back, but I'm not going. And so my dad comes home that night and he's really excited. And he's like, man, I got to talk to you. He's like, I brought you a steak. Sit down, man. I got to tell you this. And I'm like, what's going on? And so I'm eating my steak and my dad's just super excited. And he's like, dude, you should have been there. They had this guest speaker. Man, he was awesome. He had tattoos like you. He was on drugs like you. He'd been to jail like you. He was in prison like you. And man, I was telling him about you and he wants to meet you. He's got this 20-step faith-based outpatient program called Escape Addiction, and he wants to meet you. And I'm like, yeah, I'm good. And he was like, well, look, man, here's his card. And so like on the strength of my dad's just like, joy despite the opposition that I'm giving him, I take his card and I put it in my wallet. And, at the time, again, dude, to believe in God was not even like, I just thought it was silly. And so that wasn't doing nothing for me. I was seeing a psychiatrist, a psychologist. I was going to NA. I was working out. I was in the gym. I didn't want to be that way anymore. Like I didn't need it just didn't make sense to me. And I thought it was cute that he wanted me to, but I just, So I put the dude's card in my wallet and then a little while later, like about 2 months later, I just get rocked with some information concerning one of my children. And I just did not know how to handle that, man. Like I didn't see it coming. We talk about, guys are tough, right? Like, and especially when we're in facilities and we're in prison, we're like, drop of a hat, 100 miles and running. But man, I don't care how tough you are. I don't care how big and bad you are. If I catch you with a can of corn coming around aisle 3 in Walmart, you're folding like a lawn chair, right? Like it's that stuff that we don't see coming that'll drop you. And man, I got dropped and I did not know how to handle that. And in our ministry, we work in addiction and recovery. We have court programs. We spend a lot of time throughout the week talking about overcoming obstacles, choices, consequences, stuff like that. And one of the things we always discuss is triggers, right? And you'll get people that talk about torches or tinfoil or blunts and all these things that it's a trigger. But man, when you spend your entire life leaning in and on something at every turn, like when you're leaning into whatever substance you're using for joy, for sadness, for comfort, for being scared, for being unsure, it's just everything, right? You've formed a relationship with that, right? Because as humans, we are made in God's image and we are built for relation. And when we don't have healthy lives and people to connect with, we're going to connect and bond to something. And then, so when we talk about triggers, like waking up, like that was a trigger for me. Going to the bathroom, leaving the house. I mean, like it was something I turned to at every level. And then 3-4 months into this sobriety, getting kneecapped in that way, I was rocked. And so I left the house, driving down the road, had enough trust from my mom to take the car and, was just going to go to the store and go down the road. And like I said, now the prison that I work at now was there then. And I'd seen this guy walking down the road and he had a brown paper sack in his hand and I knew he just got out. I mean, we all know that, when you're walking, you can always tell. And I picked him up and, in a town that I didn't know anybody at the time, I now had a friend and he had just got out and he was wanting to get high and I was too. And so we went to a little trap house and he was inside and, and I just broke, man. I broke out there in that car and I'm like, I got more than one child and, I'm in my mom's car and, like I'm doing good. And so I just I just dipped. I just left him there. And I went into a Wendy's parking lot and just started like girl crying. Like, I mean, like,
Wow.
and it's tough, man, in recovery and especially and especially for people early in their salvation, it's a really, really hard road to plow because addiction is just a very unhealthy attempt at surviving some sort of trauma that's
Right.
occurred in their life. And at the end of the day, we're codependent people. It's why we make really good Christians, you
Mhm.
know? But unfortunately, due to that codependency and that insecurity and that need for validation from people, you know, what we don't do is share these real moments with people because we don't want them backing up from that support that they're giving us and that validation that we're receiving them from them being proud of us. And so I couldn't tell my mom because they were like really happy, you know. And I didn't have anybody I could talk to. I mean, I'm this close to relapsing. Like it's there, and if I don't do something, it's going to happen. And so,
Wow.
I'm like, man, who am I going to call? Like, and then I remember he's got tattoos like you.
Mm.
He's
Come
been to
on, man.
prison like you.
Wow.
Wow, that's cool.
He was on drugs like you, and
Man.
I had his card. And so I was just like, all right, I'm gonna call him. And I called him, man, and just instantly. Man, we're vibing, dude, on the phone. Like, he gets me. Like, he's been there, you know? Can't tell somebody how to get clean if you ain't been dirty.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And yeah, man, we just clicked. And I was like, so I made it, like, him and I worked it out me to drive over there to him the next day. But, you know, he's a Christian, but he you know, he had lived experience.
Right.
And yeah, I meet him, man. You know, shout out to one of my best friends, Jared, man. He's one of my best friends now. And
Wow, that's cool.
yeah, has been for years and years. And but yeah, man, when I got there to his office, you know, he asked me, he's like, well, what do you want? Like, what do you want out of this? Like, why are you here? I was like, I just want to change, man. I just want to be different. You know, I think that when we look at psychology and we look at human behavior in life, man, right? People tend to change, like true change, right? Like real change from the inside out. That tends to happen usually from one or two reasons. I think, you know, we either learn enough that we want to, or we hurt enough that we have to.
Right.
You know, and I had hurt so much that I had to, and then I learned so much that I wanted to, and that's what I just told him. I said, you know, I just want to be different, and I'm willing to do whatever I got to do. And so then he starts talking to me about this dude named Jesus. And I'm like, look, man, like, you know, I was like, look, I get what you're saying. I said, but I just don't prescribe to that. I said, you know, look, I'm ready to change. So like, quit talking to me about this dude in that book and just tell me what I've got to do to get right, because I'm ready to do it. Like, I don't want to talk about him. I need you to tell me how to do it. And I'll do it, you know? And man, he was just persistent, but patient. You know, looking back at it, Jared had all the fruits of the Spirit. Just, man, like I hit him every 6 ways from Sunday and just couldn't shake him. I would ask him questions that nobody could answer. And Jared, man, shout out to him, bro. He was just always like, that's a really good question. I'm not sure. I'll have to read and study some more. Let's talk about it next week. And I was like, boy, that boy's good, son. I've got to come back next week, you know. And so that relationship just continued, man. It became, and you know, you can't do nothing but respect that, right? I mean, he's not blowing smoke. He's not coming up with like this car salesman try to close me. He's just like, I don't know. Right. Let me look. Come back, you know. Yeah. And I had to respect it. And then somewhere along down the line, man, he just busted me between the eyes, man. And he was just like, I thought when we met that you said you wanted to do anything to change, and if you could do it, you would. And I was like, yeah, sure, for sure. And he's like, well, man, I'm giving you like the greatest gift in the world, man. It's God's gift for you, to you. It's free. It's free, but it's not cheap. And he's like, why don't you take it? And I was like, can I make a deal with him? And that's my, like, I went back to car guy, you know, I was like, can I make a deal? And he was like, because I mean, look, if you would have asked me, you know, throughout my life, like, what do you believe in, right? Like that cookie cutter crap answer that I would always give anybody was, I believe that there might be something, but what that something is, I don't know. I've never died before, and you ain't either. So but that left it to be possible, right? Like, because
Right.
if I don't know what that thing is, then it could be that. And this dude was like unshakable, right? Like he had a light to him. And I'd never met anybody that had been in like prison and was in recovery that was like him. And I wanted that, man. I was just something different about him. And so I was like, well, if he's got that, I might need that. And, he walked me through a salvation prayer. He started pointing to scripture. He took me to Romans. We looked at what it meant to confess by mouth and repent. And he walked me through, what salvation is. And I made a deal with God to, if I give myself to you, show yourself to me. Like creation is not enough for me, right? And that's what I asked him to do, because I wanted to believe in it, but at that time in my life, like I needed, I wanted to know whatever that looked like. And, he walked me through a salvation prayer. I wasn't saved then. I mean, as a pastor, I can look back and tell you completely, I was not saved then. But what I was excited. And I kind of left that room that day, like being back in prison, like, head on a swivel. I'm looking around. I don't want to miss it. If this thing happens, I don't want to be that way when it happens back here. Yeah. And so I'm just like, let me see. And like 2 days later, my daughter comes up to me. It's Halloween. I didn't realize I'd forgotten. And it's my youngest daughter who's with me. And she was like 6 at the time. And she was like, Dad, are you taking me trick or treat? And I was like, oh man, I forgot, And, back then Halloween was a big deal to us. Not so much at all anymore, but back then it was. And so I didn't have nowhere to take her. But I loaded her up in the car anyway. We got one of those little ice cream buckets out from underneath the sink, and just went. And like I said, I'm in Mississippi. We live in a national forest is where we're at. Ponies. So there's nobody out there. And so we made it to the only gas station that was in and around that area. And I seen some boys at the gas station, and I pulled up on them, and I was just like, hey man, do you know where I can take my daughter trick-or-treating? And the kids were just like, no hesitation. They were like, oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. You're going to go down there and make a right. And then you're going to come to a stop sign, make a left, go on down. You'll see all the cars. And I'm like, cool, man. And I thought I was going to a rich neighborhood and, like 2-story houses. And we get there and it's a church.
Yeah.
I didn't even know churches did stuff on Halloween, and I was like, and my daughter's upset. She's wanting to like knock on doors. This whole church was having this thing outside. And so you had to participate in a little event, trunk or treat, and get the candy. And she wasn't doing none of that. But we walked into the event. And when we walked into the event, there was a table there, but there was nobody at the table. So we just walked in. She's pitching a fit. I'm feeling like I just can't figure out life, And so we go to leave. And when we're leaving the church, there was a lady at the table now. And she said, well, y'all didn't get no candy? And I was like, no, ma'am, I'm new here, and I didn't know this was a church, and I was really embarrassed, and I was like, we're just leaving. And she said, well, baby, you can't leave without no candy. Let me see that bucket. And she took my daughter's bucket, and this is a gallon-sized ice cream, and she fills this thing up, Jeremy. Like, I mean, even when I say she filled it up, like it was overflowing with candy, like onto the ground. And I mean, the amount of energy it's going to take to get that kind of candy on a regular, I wouldn't have done it. But I'm leaned over picking this candy up off the ground. And I can't describe to you the clarity of the thought. I can't describe to you, like, I wasn't anything that I had to like, arrive at or contemplate or consider. Like it just a thought into my head was, I'm leaned over picking this candy up off the ground. Son, you don't have to go to anyone's house and ask for anything. If you just come to my house, I'll give you everything and you won't even have to ask.
Yeah.
And I was like, where'd that come from? Mm-hmm. And like right about that time, this door opens up and these guys come out and they're playing Amazing Grace. And that's my daughter's name.
Wow.
And
look at cool. God.
Yeah, come
Amazing.
on, man.
And so and I'd always liked that song. My granny used to sing it before she passed, washing dishes, and it had my daughter's name in it. But I never liked it for the right reasons. But that night, like I heard that song for the first time. You know, I once was blind, now I see. And I was just like, okay, this might be real.
Wow.
Like, okay, it might be real. And
yeah.
so we go home, and I've not told anybody about this, right? And so that was like a Thursday, I think Halloween was. Well, then the next Sunday, my dad comes up to me. Now you got to understand, like, he has just been inviting me to church, like, and I've just been declining. And at that point, like, I'd been going to Jared's for a little while, and I think at that time my dad had just kind of relented to that being church for me.
Yeah.
And so then Sunday, that next Sunday after Halloween, my dad comes up to me and he's like, look, Mark, you got to go to church with me Sunday. He's like, I don't care if you come in. You don't got to go in. Look, Brian hurt his back and we've got to move some tables and I need you to drive, okay? So could care less if you come to church. I'm not asking you to come to church, but I need you to drive the car so you're coming. And I'm like, Brian? And he's like, yes, Mark. And I'm like, isn't that the church where you met Jared? And he's like, yes, Mark. I'm telling you, you ain't got to come in. I was like, no, man. No, let's go. And he looked at me funny.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
And so we get to Brian's, we get to this church. Now, it's not a church, like, it's just a FEMA church. It was a big FEMA building is what it was.
Yeah.
And it had fold-up aluminum chairs in it, a little podium and an office. And but it was a church, you know what I'm saying?
Come on.
And so I get there and I walk in and Brian comes up to me and he's like, are you Marcus? I used to go by Marcus, but when I really got on a walk, I dropped the cuss. But he's like, are you Marcus? I was like, yeah. And he goes, and he just comes up to me and hugs me. And he's like, dude, we've been praying for you for so long. And I'm like, thanks, man. And he's like, come here, I want to show you something. And I'm like, all right. And so he takes me back into his office. And he's like, and he points to these two frames up on the wall. And one has a dollar and one has a quarter. And he's like, you know what that dollar is? And I was like, yeah, I heard the story, right? Like you bought this place for a dollar. He's like, yeah, I did. He's really excited. I was like, yeah, man, that's cool. He goes, do you know what that quarter is? And I was like, no. He said, the quarter was the very first tithe that we ever had at this church. It was our first offering here. He said, you know who gave us that quarter? And I was like, mm-mm. He said, your daughter.
Wow.
Your daughter. 10 years ago. 10 years ago, my daughter sewed into this church with everything she had in her pocket. And a decade later, it would be a building that my dad would meet a man that would introduce me to the gospel. And I was like, I tell people all the time, man, like as a pastor, occasionally I have the privilege of taking the tithes to the bank. There's nothing that warms my heart more than changing that off.
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah.
What God does with just so small stuff, man.
Yeah.
A quarter. Yeah, dude. I love changing offering plates, bro. Love it. I love it.
Wow.
And so he asked me if I was going to stay for service. And I was like, yeah, I think I will. Yeah. He's like, you got a Bible? And I was like, no, I don't have a Bible. And I never opened a Bible. And so he starts searching for a Bible. And he finds one like in the back of this filing cabinet. And he's like, wipes the dust off of it. And his old King James hands it to me. I sit down. And the very first time I ever opened the Bible, all these little pieces of paper fell out onto the floor. And I didn't know what they were. And I reached down and they were prayer cards. And they went back 10 years. They were all in different handwriting. And my name was on every one of them, dude.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
And I surrendered. I was just like, yeah, you got me, bro. Like, I've been wrong my whole life. I've been wrong my whole life.
And prayer had kept you alive.
Yeah, look.
Yeah.
I have even today, Miss Angela, our secretary, I can't see that, but every week we do prayer cards at the prison and we fill them out, and then she puts them on an insert at the church, And the church is committed to praying for the prisoners, and the prisoners have committed to praying for the church. And we put the church's prayer requests on it. I have one of our programs over there, and on one side of the sheet, it's all the church. It's all of our members that have been having things that we need prayer for. And then on the other side are all the prisoners that we work with at Stone County Regional Correctional Facility. And they've committed to praying for us as we have committed to praying for them. And these little pieces of paper mean so much to me that when we write them each week. And so, yeah, it's and you know, when we look at Romans, man, and Paul tells us that God works all things for the good, right? Like, for those that love him and live according to his purpose and his will. And when we look back at that situation in my life, like God worked through Jared's addiction like 25 years before that to lead him up there. God worked in the absent fathers in that trailer park to create that steak night. He worked in my dad's, problem in his marriage that led him up to lead. Like God worked all of those things in this perfect timing that would, that would go on to create this thing that he's doing through me for whatever reason. I have no idea still why he's, doing that.
Okay. No. And so, we've got to get to that. So what you're doing now?
Yes. So that's how I met him. And that's a great story. But then I had to get to know him. And then that's a big difference, right? Like some of us get caught up in that excitement of knowing him or meeting him, but we fail to get to know him.
Right.
And for me, like in that moment, my faith was super shallow. Like at that point, like for me, like I had arrived, like it was over with. Like I believe it's real. I was wrong. Okay. So I'm going to go church shopping. I'll find a church. And when they tell me to go, I'll go. And other than that, I'm home and I'm out the way and I'm not getting in trouble. And that was winning for me, right? That was my faith. I was killing it. I'm going to church. When they tell me to open the Bible,
I got a Bible. Yeah.
As a matter of fact, a couple weeks ago, I went to a Bible study. What you doing other than that? Home, out the way, in my room, not had no trouble. I'm doing great, But we see God didn't rescue us, restore us, and redeem us, and call us in our worst moments for us to go sit in the back pew or a bedroom, man. It's not, our faith has a responsibility. It's a call to action. That is why God is raising up an army of convicts and addicts right now, because we have been conditioned for mission work like nobody else.
Amen.
Yeah.
Paul says in the book of Philippians, I've learned the secret of life, right? To live with everything or nothing, with plenty or little.
Yeah.
When we've come from prison, you have to understand that God has been preparing you in that calling, in that moment, the worst thing that you have ever done, the situation that each and every one of these men and women that are listening to us on this podcast, like this is the arena, the training and the qualifying and the pressing right now, because guess what happens? Nothing shakes you. Like only when you have everything taken from you time and time again, do the smallest things matter so much.
Yeah.
Like you can't, if I'm having a bad day, light switches. Cheer me up. I remember years when I'd have given anything to turn that light off above me, right? Or a ceiling fan does a lot for me right now. In my life, like you can't rattle me. I remember when I would give anything for one noodle, right? Like a pack of noodles. Like, so if I've got something to eat, I don't care if it's, you can't shake me. And God is raising up men and women that have come from these places, because we are living in an hour like Ezekiel 22, where he is standing prepared to judge the land, right? In 22:30, Jesus says, in the book of Ezekiel, he says, God searches the entire world for someone to stand in the gap to rebuild the wall of righteousness. And so he won't have to destroy the land. And I'm finding no one.
Yeah.
I'm finding no one. We live in an hour right now where pastors are fixing to start to go to jail for preaching the truth. And we need men and women that are willing to stand up in that gap, to not shrink back. And it's not going to be the guys that were drinking cold coffee going to church all their lives. It's going to be, when First Peter says that we live in an hour that the prophets wanted to know more about when they spoke of these things that were not of themselves, and that the angels are eagerly watching. Like that's a dude, if you believe the word, then that is something that you need to sit on, that we live in an hour that this gracious salvation that has been given to us through that work on that cross, that we live in a time that the prophets wanted to know more about.
Yeah,
like Ezekiel and Jeremiah and Isaiah and Elijah. Like they wanted to know more about us, because we live in a generation where all we have to do, it's like Jeremiah 3, just turn back to me, my wayward children. Just acknowledge your faults. I will give you shepherds, right? all you have to do is cry out. And that faith, that repentance, you have that sealed salvation. And then it's a call to action that we need to be. God needs mission-minded men, action-oriented men that are running to him and to the truth and not from it. And later on in that same chapter, 1 Peter says it's, that you're prepared for action. And while you exercise self-control. And that's what he's looking for, man. And he wants men like that first century church. Where did Paul and Barnabas go? Every single time. Riot, revival, riot, revival, riot, revival. And they kept running into it. And there's just not a lot of people built like that anymore. And and that's what God is using us, because if they throw us in jail for the gospel's sake, hey man, guys like us, we're doing it on our head, dude. Yeah. You know, and finally get to do it for the right reason. Right? We ain't got to apologize for it. Right. You can't tear us down. Throw me in jail. Spend years in jail. Can I go back for the Lord? Amen. Let's go. But exercising self-control, operating from the fruits of the Spirit, doing it in God's will, in God's way. And, but yeah, man, it's, and I think that's what most people don't understand, is that they think that this salvation is like some squared away goody two-shoes. No, man, salvation swag is real, dude. Like, God is raising up real men to do real work, to take everything that the enemy taught them, but now use against him. Amen. Because wherever there's a great movement of God.
So how long have you been going back into prison?
So, I fell one more time. Like, I got saved, got baptized, found a pastor. He started discipling me on Tuesdays, and I still wanted to do God's will my way. And, one of the things that I talk about, what caused that problem, is when we look at Saul, the first king of Israel, right? Like his life so he got anointed as that first king, right? And God told him and commanded him, he said, okay, I'm going to make you king. But now you go in there and destroy the Amalekite nation. Like, you kill everything, men, women, children, babies, goats, cattle, donkeys, all of it, right? And then we see Saul kind of take this mission very seriously. He went in there, he laid in wait in that valley, he come out and he did most of it. He did the heavy lifting. He did, almost all of it. And he got to the king, he spared his life. He captured him, didn't kill him, but captured him, and then kept the cattle and the goats. And the Bible tells us everything of value. And, I look back at Saul, and I try not to read the Bible with hindsight. I try to put myself in those positions, because many things make our sinful choices understandable. Nothing makes them excusable. Right. I didn't say that. I didn't come up with that. That's James McDonald. He wrote a book, 40 Days of Biblical Manhood. He said that. But I try to understand it. And, looking at Saul's life, like, why destroy the cattle? They didn't oppose the people coming out of Israel, and my troops were probably hungry. And there's a ton of reasons that he could have kept that. And I might have too, if given in that same situation. But the fact of the matter is that God commanded him to kill it, and instead he kept it and he captured. And I think there's a lot of us that do the heavy lifting. We do most of it. And then there's some things that don't make sense to us to put to death. And so we keep it, and for me, it was my family, right? Like, I had the mother of my child and all that, and I deserved to have that together. I didn't really understand why God wanted me to put that to death, but God's got resurrection power. We've got to have the courage to put ourselves to death, and everything else that opposed us from coming out of the bondages of sin, we must put to death. And what God wants to bring back to life and put back in your life, that's on God. Our thing is obedience, right? And wait well, and be patient, and just trust him, even if it doesn't make any sense to us. And so I wanted to keep some things that I needed to put to death. Went back, fell again, got really upset because nobody wanted to do what I thought that they should do, which is what I was doing. You know what I'm saying? And not thinking back to my hard-headed time where my dad for, a long time, and I'm going over there doing the same thing, and she's acting the same way I was. But then now I've gotten it. It's real. You want to shake somebody. That's real, and didn't work out. And I got really upset that I was going to have to come back to Mississippi and, do this thing while nobody over there wanted to do it. And so I decided, while I was in Alabama trying to put some stuff back together that I should have put to death, I decided to get high one more time. And because I felt like I deserved it, because I wasn't going to do it anymore. Didn't want to do it anymore. And they were all doing it. So I'm going to do it one more time too. And then I thought it was cocaine, and it was fentanyl. And I died. I say that. They Narcan me 7 times. They defibrillated me. Wow. I woke up handcuffed to a hospital bed. Then I woke up again handcuffed to a booking bench. And then they said that I was catatonic up in Holden for like 4 days. They sentenced me to a year in the city jail. I don't know how I didn't get a felony.
Wow.
And then I called my mom and I was like, Mom, I fell off. Like, I don't know what happened. Like, I was doing so good. And now here I am in jail again for another year. And so I said, Mom, can you mail me a Bible? I said, I don't know where I went wrong. And so, yeah, she scoured the internet and found this wonderful Life Recovery Bible and mailed it to me. And in that last incarceration, I began to read the Word of God for the first time, not out of obligation, not because I was told to, but because I wanted to figure out what happened, where I went wrong. And I just remember, I started in the front, started reading to the back, and then was kind of didn't understand why they called it the Holy Bible. Like, everybody was dying and killing each other. They were lying. Like, it didn't make any sense. Like, oh, this ain't not holy. This is like crazy right here, man. I was like, I've got 4 novels in my. I don't know why I've not read the Bible. Like, this is awesome, and got really caught up in it, man. And then was like, I just don't think anybody knows what's really going on in here. I need to tell them. And so I wanted to do this prayer call in the jail and to share this with the guys. But I wanted to be cool, I didn't want to. And so there was this one guy that was in the jail that he would wake up every morning and he would open up his Bible in front of the camera and he would play crossword puzzles. And I never saw him read the Bible, but then he was like always trying to run stuff. And so I had a friend of mine that was in that jail with me at that time. And so I called him over there and I was like, hey, we ought to prayer call. And I bet he'll come over here and try to run it. And so we were kind of picking on this guy, but I wanted to do the prayer call, but I just didn't want to seem like weird, And so we called prayer call and like 12 dudes came back there. And I was like, oh my goodness. And I told my homeboy when we got back to the rack, and I was like, dude, we can't be playing. God's going to smite us, man. He's going to tear us down, dude. We cannot. These guys want to worship.
Hey.
And so that led into a nightly devotional.
Amen.
Wow.
And then that led into a Bible study. And I called my dad and I was like, how do you do a Bible study? And so he was talking to my mom. My mom called the Baptist Association in Mississippi. They contacted the Baptist Association in Alabama. They contacted a local church by the jail, and they brought us some Bible study books, which sounded cool until we got the books. And then I opened them up, and I was like, I have no idea what these questions are. And they were all New Testament. And I had been reading the Bible front to back. And so when I got these Bible study books that were Gospels, I was like, we've already told people we were going to do this. Like, I got to just start reading. And then when I started reading the Gospels, I was just like, oh my goodness, like, this all makes so much sense now. Like, all the stuff my pastor was talking about, all the stuff that lines up, all these problems that Jesus is having with these Pharisees, because I had started and read through the Old Testament and then arrived, it just clicked. And God gave me a spirit of personal reflection and understanding the word. And so we started doing that.
And that was before the tablet. Right, that was before the tablet.
Yeah, well, yeah, we didn't have them there, and nobody was allowed to come in. There was nothing, there was,
How long ago was this?
This was 2022, man.
Oh, so it's not that long ago. My goodness. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you're a preacher, man. So you went all over the place. I want to get a little bit of what you're doing now, because you are going in prison, right?
Yeah. So So when I came out, so that revival that happened in that jail. Somebody asked me to preach. I told them they were crazy, and they were like, "Well, you talk good." And I said, "Well, I just sell cars, man." And and they said, "Well, no, man, you got to preach." And so I said, "Well, I prayed about it," and then I woke up one night and started writing a sermon for the first time, and I preached my first sermon I ever preached was about trading in your old life and pick up that brand new life, and you're covered under the blood, full lifetime warranty. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because God uses what we know.
Sound like Carl.
Yeah, God uses what we know. Carl has a lot of car examples as well.
Yes. So I preached in there, and 38 men gave their life to the Lord in that hour in that season.
Come on.
And then they let me out, and I remember thinking, like, no, like, don't let me out. But like, we were doing a lot in there. And a revival had broke out. The jail quit cussing. We were doing acts of kindness, nominations. We were saving stuff off our trays.
Okay, hold on. So this is 2022.
Yeah, early.
You're still inside.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now
that's how my call to ministry occurred. Was just a need in that jail and these men.
Wow.
Amen.
And so, I started just understanding it, like, the men were watching me when I didn't realize they were, and that, we can't speak blessings and curses out the same mouth. And just, even as a full-time pastor now, somebody that has committed their life to me, I've never been closer to God than I was there, right? because, we tell people this all the time in the prison that, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there's freedom. Because when it becomes not about you, but about others and what God can do through you, it's a mission field wherever you go. Like you're in, and dude, there's pastors are trying to get into prisons. And for the men that are in the prisons, that is a ripe mission field. So if it becomes not about you, and so that's kind of where I was. I was in the mission field.
Okay, so when you get out of jail, how long is it before you get to go back in?
So when I get out, I called 1-800 number in the back of the Life Recovery Bible. We started a group in a community center, and that was really cool. I called a community center, and then I had to contact the board of supervisors because they wanted me to pay every time we were going to do it. And then what I didn't know is the board of supervisors in our county has some pastors on there, and they've been praying for some resources like this. So they called me back, gave me the building for free forever. Awesome. And so we started that group. And then when we were leading up to the first group, we needed Bibles. And I couldn't afford Life Recovery Bibles, but I just needed Bibles. I said, I can run it with mine, and as long as somebody's got Bibles. And my dad said, hey, when I was pastoring at this church like 8 years ago, I had ordered a bunch of Bibles. He said, I bet they still got them. We should go over there and ask. And hadn't been there in a long time. So we went to this church. And when we got there, they were about to shut their doors. There was only 2 people there. Wow. And the only reason the church was still open is because they lived across the street from the church and didn't want to close something that they had to look at every day. So the Baptist Association was paying the bills there. They were paying the insurance on the building, everything. There's no reason for this church to be open. And when we got there, my dad had pastored that church a long time ago. They were like, oh my gosh, they looked at me and they were like, oh, we've been praying for you forever. And I was like, and they said, well, you come give your testimony. And I was like, sure. And so we started doing those community center groups. And then so I told them I'd do my testimony in a month or 2, right? That I wanted to get these groups going and stuff. And then what was happening was people were coming into these community centers unchurched, church hurt. They were getting the gospel. And then when I gave my testimony, they came, and it was like 12 people. And the 2 people at that church were really excited because there was 12 people. And so they were like, will you come back next week? And I was like, well, what do you want me to do next week? And I was like, I just told my testimony. And they're like, we want you to preach. And I'm like, oh no. And, but I had preached in the jails, and I still had some of my sermons. And so I was like, out of all the sermons that I preached in the jail, I was like, maybe I can use 1 or 2 in a real church, And so I did. And then for some reason they asked me to come back, and then kept asking. And then, yeah. And so then I just kept, I don't know why they kept asking me to come back, but they did. And then they called me to be an interim while they prayed. And then they asked me to be their full-time pastor. And then I got ordained there as a pastor. And I had a lot of pastors walking me through this thing. We're part of the Gulf Coast Baptist Association. And just shout out to all those pastors that were a part of my life throughout this whole journey and still are walking me through this. And
literally from the prison to the pulpit.
Yeah, for sure.
Really seeing you.
Yeah.
He just looks like a pastor.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. For 20 years.
Yeah. So that it's so recent. That's amazing. You have something about this that you want to share because
he's got the
way
men's
over our
homes.
hour. But
just real quick, talk about the men's home.
Yeah. So when God gave us that church, it had it has a parsonage attached to it that they had a fellowship hall and some classrooms, and so we worked with CPS for a reunification process. We had a family we were doing some work with, and the dad had some problems. And so he surrendered, and I was letting him stay in a back room until he got a job. I made a 30-day deal with him. And then there was a guy in Alabama that wanted to go to treatment. And so I got him to a treatment center in Jackson, but he had to stay at the church overnight until I could take him the next morning. And when he got up to Jackson, he walked out of the program, literally wasn't up there 12 hours, and then walked out. And he called me, and I'm like, why did you leave? You got furloughed from jail to go to this program. He's like, I just want to go to your program. I was like, I don't have a program. And he's like, yeah, you do. I saw it. There's a dude living there. And I was like, no, bro, that's not a program.
That's crazy.
And so I called the jail back, and I said, hey, I might have a program. And they were like, well, do you or don't you? I said, well, I think I might. I said, but if I do I need to take if I did, and I wanted to keep this guy, I said, would I need to take him and turn him back in first, or could I keep him? And she was like, I don't know. Let me call you back. And so she calls me back, and she said, if you want to keep him, just send us an acceptance letter with a letterhead and the EIN number. And we have one for the church because it's on the church property. It's all part of the same umbrellas and the 501c3. So I called my dad and I was like, do you have an EIN number for the church? And he's like, yeah. So he shot it over to me. I Googled how to write an acceptance letter. I sent it over and they took it. And I was like, this can't be that easy, man. And so that's kind of how the men's home started. We went before the church. And by that time I was pastoring it. And I said, hey, I believe this is what God is wanting us to do is to create a place for these men to come and gather themselves and figure out what God wants to be. And so the church voted on it. And through our tithes, we fund that program.
How many are in there?
So amazing.
So we hold 8. We're fixing to do another expansion to hold 10. We have a full-time house director that lives on site in the house with the men.
Wow.
And it's just, and we get full health care, medical, dental, vision, counseling, everything. That's great.
My goodness.
What I love about your story is, Jesus said the harvest is plentiful.
Yes.
But the laborers are few. Send
Right.
laborers, pray to
sure.
send laborers in the harvest. And you're talking to a bunch of men and women. Many of them are ready to go labor for the kingdom of God.
For sure.
But they have this idea that, well, I can't do it until I've got this degree or this certificate or this many years. And I was just thinking, Paul told Timothy, let no man despise your youth. And I don't think it's just talking about age. It's talking about how long you've even been in this thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, he's just looking for willing vessels.
Right.
Yeah,
there's a lot of effort. We throughout that time, man, I amassed a lot of stuff and I'm a certified presenter for the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention, certified mental health coach for the American Association of Christian Counseling, work with Pine Belt Mental Health Crisis Intervention Team where we train law enforcement officers to de-escalate situations with mental health, trained in trauma. I was working on the back of all this, right? I mean, and now by the grace of God, just got accepted at New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary to take my master's degree in January.
My goodness. So I'm sure, you'll have maybe a website or something that when people get out, they can look for you and maybe the church address that we will be able to put up so that, people in that area can get out and they know they can be accepted and where they can go. We're like way beyond what we normally do. It's okay.
Yes,
we might split it in two. I don't know how we'll do it.
We can use it's fine.
But would you pray with
Before it does that, didn't you have a gift?
Oh, thank you.
He forgot about our gift.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
Okay.
Well, I do want my gift.
Yeah. So these are some cards that Marcus Ladner, the clerk that works for me at Stone County Regional Correctional Facility, has made for you guys.
Oh, it's got cowboys on the back.
Yeah.
A chancla. Yeah, and it's in motion.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
He said it's la chancla. Some of us have been on the receiving end of it, and some of us still need to be. Mama Eve, the motherly love that you pour out every time you speak is comforting and needed. You are a cup overflowing with love, inspiration, and compassion.
Oh.
Your warmth touches even the toughest of guys and the hardest of criminals. You are a true spiritual mama.
Wow.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you
That's
all
awesome.
so much.
I like this real quick. How about them Cowboys? The record looks bad and the team is all injured. Well, that's fine because the team that we're on doesn't care about any of that. God's team accepts us no matter our record or injuries. He has set you aside to be a voice on that team. Amen.
And look at that football helmet back there. Team Vida is up there.
Yeah.
We're Team Vida, you guys, bringing life, living life, real life.
And this is so that was from the state side, and this was just some signatures that we got from the county side.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Awesome. So county seeing us too, huh?
Yeah, it's a unique facility. They have state, federal, and county in one facility.
That's what you said. I forgot
crazy.
about that.
And that was prepared for you guys, and you just keep it on.
Oh, well, thank you so much. We'll read that in a minute. Well, please just close us out in prayer, brother.
Yeah. Father God, we just come to you, Lord, with humble hearts, falling at your feet, God, and just seeking you for every answer that we may have in this life, Lord. Every problem that we have, Lord, may it just bring about such a purpose, Lord. For everything that we have that goes wrong, we just need you again, Lord. So to be in a constant state of problems is just to be in a constant need of you. And Lord, that's a very good place to be. And so, Father, we thank you for those problems, Lord. So often when we do get what we want, we turn away from you. And so, Father, I just pray that in this hour, for all of those listening, Lord, that they may consider something greater than themselves, Lord, and look to you. God, I just pray that you meet them right there where they are. And if they seek, they will find. If they look, they certainly will. If they ask, that you will answer, God. And we just can't thank you enough for using messes of men like us to do any of this for you, Lord. We thank you for your grace and your mercy that you freely give because we don't deserve it. We thank you for your presence in our life despite our absence in yours. And we thank you for just always being that perfect Father there when we look. In Jesus' name we pray.